There is a throne at the far end of a long dark hall, a wall of flame standing behind it, and a figure sitting in the middle of that fire, who the series will not let you see. 2 entire seasons, his face stays hidden in shadow, and it is not until the opening episode of Book 3 that we finally see it. You hear the voice, you feel the room go cold around it, and the animators keep the light off him on purpose, because a threat you cannot look at is worse than one you can. That is Fire Lord Ozai, and here is the strange part. By the time we reach the top of tonight's list, he may not even be the villain who unsettles you the most. Tonight on Ember we are taking every notable villain in Avatar and ranking them by how evil they actually are, from the ones who barely qualify all the way up to the people who ordered the murder of an entire nation. So get comfortable, turn the lights down, we will be here a while, and if you haven't subscribed, it genuinely does help us keep making these. We are going to climb this list from the bottom, and the bottom is a slippery place, because the first few names barely belong on a villain ranking at all. They are the mercenaries, the bodyguards, the people who took the wrong side for reasons that had almost nothing to do with cruelty. Starting here is the point. The show is unusually careful about the difference between someone who is dangerous and someone who is evil, and if you want that distinction to mean anything, by the time we reach the Fire Lord, you have to feel where it starts. So we start with June. If you have not thought about June in years, she is the bounty hunter Zuko hires in Book 1, the young woman in dark makeup who rides an enormous eyeless beast called a Shershu and treats the entire war as a business opportunity. She works for whoever pays. She tracks Aang for Zuko without a flicker of ideology, and later, in the finale, when Zuko needs to find the group again, and then needs to find his uncle, Iroh, it is June he goes back to, because she is simply the best tracker money can buy. That is the whole of her politics. She is on this list, completeness, and almost nothing else, and I think she is a useful place to begin, because she shows you the flaw. This is what a person looks like who helps the villains, and is not one. The creature she rides is worth a minute, because it tells you how much thought this show put into even its throwaway characters. The Shershu, whose name is Nyla, is completely blind. It has no eyes at all. It navigates entirely by smell, and the series gives it a range that is frankly absurd, able to follow a single scent across enormous distances of open country, which is exactly why a bounty hunter would build her livelihood around one animal. Its tongue delivers a paralytic strike, so anything it catches goes limp and stays limp. By most accounts, June never really had to train the beast herself, since the creature seemed to come to her already shaped by instinct. She inherited both the animal and the trade from her father, another bounty hunter, who took the Shershu as payment on a job and passed the whole grim inheritance down to his daughter. There is a small, quiet world implied in that detail, a family business of hunting people, handed from one generation to the next like a fishing boat. The way she is beaten is the part that gets me, because it is one of the smartest little action beats in Book 1, and it is entirely Katara's doing. Nyla tracks by scent, and a scent tracker's greatest strength is also the exact place to hit it. Katara flings a container of perfume so that it shatters and floods the creature's senses, overwhelming the one instrument the whole animal is built around. Blinded in the only sense it has, the Shershu lashes out at random, and its paralytic tongue catches June and Zuko instead of its targets. The hunters go down by their own weapon. If you are keeping a private theme in your head as we climb, hold on to that image, because it comes back again and again on this list. Over and over in this world, the dangerous are undone by the exact thing that made them dangerous. But June herself, morally, sits right at the bottom. She hurts people for money, and she does not pretend otherwise. And the series extends her a strange kind of respect for that honesty. She is never cruel for pleasure. She never targets a child. She has no cause she is willing to kill for, which paradoxically makes her one of the safest people in the entire cast, because a mercenary can always be outbid, walked away from, or made irrelevant. When the money runs out, so does she. You cannot say that about anyone in the back half of tonight's list. So, June opens us, the honest professional in a war full of true believers, and from here, the ground only gets darker. Next up, a pair who spend most of the series standing on either side of the villain we will get to much later, and who both, when it finally matters, refuse to be villains at all. Mai and Ty Lee, Azula's two lieutenants, the girls she pulls out of her childhood to hunt Aang across the Earth Kingdom in Book 2. On the surface, they are the muscle of the scariest trio in the series. Look a little closer, and you find two people who followed a friend into something they never quite believed in, and who each choose a person over that friend at the exact moment it costs everything. Take Mai first. She is the one who almost never changes expression, the girl who throws knives with lethal precision and narrates her own boredom in a flat monotone that the series plays for dry comedy. Ela cresce numa família, nobre bem relacionada de capital de Nau do Fogo, criada para ser silenciosa e controlada e decorativa. O pai se tornou governador quando ela era praticamente uma adolescente. Mas para ler a postura dela como a de uma criança que aprendeu que mostrar sentimentos em voz alta trazia problemas. She is genuinely dangerous. In a straight fight, she is one of the deadliest people Team Avatar ever crosses, because she does not need bending to pin you to a wall from across a courtyard. And yet the thing Mai is remembered for is the moment she stops. That moment is the Boiling Rock, the Fire Nation's inescapable prison, built into the caldera of a volcano, and one detail makes the whole sequence click into place. The Wiki records that the warden of the Boiling Rock is Mai's uncle, her mother's brother. That is the family thread running under the entire prison break. When Zuko is captured there and the escape goes sideways, it is Mai who steps in front of Azula to let the others get away, and she says, out loud, to the person she fears above all others, that she loves Zuko more than she fears her. Coming from Mai, whose entire personality is the refusal to show what she feels, that line is an earthquake. Ty Lee then blocks Azula to stop her killing Mai on the spot, and the two of them are hauled off to a cell together. The henchwomen defect, both of them, in the same breath, which is why Mai sits so low on a ranking of evil. She served a monstrous cause for a while, out of loyalty and boredom and a bad crush, and the second that cause asked her to lose the person she actually loved, she was done. She is not a mastermind. She is not even really a believer. She is a bored, lonely, lethal teenager who picks the right side one beat before the end, and the writers clearly like her for it. Ty Lee sits just beside her, and if anything, she is even harder to file under evil. She is the acrobat, the relentlessly cheerful one, who talks about people's auras and cartwheels through fights, and her power is the strangest in the trio because she does not bend at all. Ty Lee blocks chi. She strikes a precise sequence of points on your body, and your bending simply switches off. Your limbs go dead, and the strongest waterbender or firebender in the room is suddenly as helpless as anyone else. On a show obsessed with the hierarchy of bending, she is the great equalizer, a non-bender who can neutralize a master with her fingertips. The martial art under that is real, and it is a remarkably dense piece of research on the creator's part. The Avatar Wiki traces chi blocking to at least 3 real traditions. There is Dim Mak, the Chinese so-called death touch that targets the body's acupuncture meridians. There is Varma Kalai, the South Indian, Tamil science of vital points. And there is the Phoenix Eye Fist, a striking style that concentrates force through a single knuckle to hit those points precisely. Ty Lee is a cartoon acrobat, built on 3 separate real-world pressure point systems, which is a lot of homework for a character whose main mode is giggling. The backstory is softly sad in the way this show does so well. Ty Lee, the Wiki notes, is one of 7 sisters, all of them nearly identical, and she ran away to join the circus specifically to stop being one interchangeable girl in a set and to become her own person. Everything cheerful about her is a small rebellion against being a copy, and her ending is the cleanest redemption of anyone in Azula's circle. After Azula falls, Ty Lee is imprisoned alongside a group of captured Kyoshi warriors, teaches them chi blocking, wins them over, and becomes a Kyoshi warrior herself. The girl who blocked Team Avatar's bending ends the story wearing the armour of Aang's oldest allies, so both of them defect, and both of them land here at the soft bottom of the list. And I want to be careful not to overstate what they ever were. They are henchwomen, not architects. The famous, chilling ideas in this show do not come from them. Azula uses them, and when Azula's world contracts to a single point of paranoia, they are the first two people to walk away, which tells you they were never the true poison in that trio. Real villainy, the kind this list is climbing toward, does not defect at the boiling rock. It doubles down. Keep that in mind, because the next few names cannot be talked out of anything. The simple reason that they are barely people at all. The next tier is a strange one to rank, because to call these three evil, you almost have to bend the word. They are spirits, ancient and enormous, and the series is careful to frame them less as villains with plans and more as forces you are foolish to disturb. Whether they count as evil at all is really a question about whether a hurricane is evil, and I find the fact that the writers put them in your path anyway, without a scrap of malice to hold on to, more unsettling than a lot of the human monsters higher up. Start with Wan Shi Tong, the knowledge spirit. He takes the form of a colossal black owl, and he guards a library that holds, in theory, everything that has ever been known. When Team Avatar comes to his library in Book 2, looking for information they can use to win the war, he lets them in on one condition: that they seek knowledge for its own sake, and not as a weapon. They break that promise almost immediately, because of course they do. They are in the middle of a war, and when he realises he has been used, he does not scheme or bargain. He simply decides that if human beings will only turn his knowledge into another way to kill each other, they do not deserve it. And he begins to sink the entire library, all of that accumulated understanding, down into the sand and out of the world. His name is a piece of design in itself. The Wiki notes it is Mandarin, and it translates roughly as "he who knows 10,000 things." The owl, the oldest human shorthand for wisdom, turned into a thing that would rather bury all wisdom than watch you misuse it. The specific owl matters too, which is the kind of detail this show rewards you for chasing. Folklore analyses and the Wiki both point out that Wan Shi Tong is drawn as a barn owl, and some folklore traditions treat the barn owl as the eeriest of owls, the species linked above all to ghosts. Picking that species is not an accident. It is the difference between an owl that looks wise and an owl that looks like it belongs to the dead. And here is a thread almost nobody follows past the original series. Because he sinks his library into the spirit world, that is precisely where he turns up again in the Legend of Korra, still guarding it, now bent to the service of the villain of that season, and coldly betraying the young airbender Jinora, who trusted him. Carries a grudge against humanity across the better part of a century, one that lingers from the 100-Year War all the way into the age of Korra, before it finally begins to soften. Immoral, not cruel, and unforgiving in a way that a merely cruel creature could never manage. Then there is Ko, and Ko is the one that scared a generation of children in daylight, the Face Stealer, an ancient spirit shaped like an impossibly long centipede with a rotating collection of stolen faces. And one rule: you show any expression at all in his presence, any flicker of fear or surprise or grief, he takes your face. Aang has to go to him for information during the Siege of the North, keeping his features perfectly, deathly blank, while this thing circles him and murmurs. And it is one of the tensest scenes in Book 1, precisely because the danger is not a punch you can dodge. It is a muscle in your own face you have to fight. Construction of Ko is a small masterclass in borrowed horror. The name, as the Avatar Wiki and Screen Rant both note, comes from the Japanese word for face, cow, He is a child of the Mother of Faces, a spirit who grants faces to all living things, which makes him the dark inversion of his own parent, taking away what she gives. And his design pulls from two very specific Japanese sources. There is the Nopperabo, the faceless ghost of folklore, that first appears to you wearing the face of someone you know, before it wipes itself smooth. And there is No Theatre, whose carved masks are deliberately built to be neutral, so that a slight tilt of the actor's head under the lights seems to change the expression from joy to sorrow without the mask moving at all. Ko's endlessly cycling faces are that idea made monstrous, and the crew reportedly designed far more stolen faces than could ever fit into a single episode. One of them is a buried treat for close watchers. Screen Rant points out that among his collection is a blue mask that closely resembles the blue spirits, the disguise Zuko wears, along with a blue-nosed monkey face. Small ghosts of other characters hanging in his gallery of the taken. And Ko does one more thing that most viewers only catch on a rewatch. He foreshadows a murder a full episode before it happens. When Aang is with him, Ko warns that someone intends to kill the moon and ocean spirits, planting the crime in your mind before you have any idea who would do such a thing or why. That someone is a man we will meet properly higher up this list, and Ko names his sin before the man has even decided to commit it. So where does a face-stealing spirit rank on evil? Low, honestly, because he has no war aim and no hatred. He is a predator obeying his own nature, a trap that has always been in the woods. You do not defeat Ko, you survive him by controlling yourself, which may be the purest Avatar idea in the entire show. Which brings us to the biggest and least human thing on the whole list, and the one I most want to be careful about, because fans get this wrong constantly. Vaatu. If you have only seen the original series, you have never met him, because Vaatu belongs to the Legend of Korra, and I want to flag that boundary clearly. He is not a person. He is not, whatever the internet tells you, the devil of this universe. Vaatu is the ancient spirit of darkness and chaos, and he exists as one half of a pair. His opposite is Rava, the spirit of light and order, the spirit who eventually bonds with the very first Avatar and lives on inside every Avatar after. Light and dark in this cosmology are not good and evil in a fairy tale. They are two forces locked together forever, and the crucial rule, the one people miss, is that neither can ever permanently destroy the other. Beat Vaatu down to nothing, and darkness simply begins to grow back inside the light, because you cannot have one without the other. It cannot be killed, it can only be contained, and then only for an age at a time. The design history here is lovely and tells you exactly how the creators thought about them. According to the Korra art book, Brian Konietzko deliberately did not want humanoid light and dark spirits, no glowing angel and no horned demon. He sketched Rava and Vaatu as faceless, kite-like, squid-like shapes, floating symbols rather than characters, so that you would read them as elemental principles and not as guys. Even the names carry the idea. Fan and Wiki analysis notes that the sounds lean on Zoroastrian dualism, the old Persian religion of a light god and a dark god at eternal war, with Rava aligning to the principle of order and Vaatu to the principle of chaos. And some fans even read a quieter pun buried in the names themselves. The two great cosmic enemies of this world are, at the level of their names, quiet and noise. So Vaatu is on the list because a ranking of villains has to reckon with the show's literal embodiment of evil, but he is also the clearest case that being the darkness is not the same as being the worst. He has no cruelty in him, because cruelty needs a self, and Vaatu is closer to a weather system than a mind. The truly worst things on this list are all going to be people who chose. Vaatu never chose anything. He simply is the dark. The way the tide simply is the tide. Now we cross a line, and everything from here up is a person who chose. The next tier fascinates me more than any other on the whole list, because these are the villains who thought they were the heroes. Idealists, most of them. People with a real wound and a real grievance who let it curdle into something that would have hurt the innocent. And The first of them is a teenager, who when you meet him, looks exactly like an ally, Jet. He arrives in Book 1 as the charismatic leader of a band of orphaned kids called the Freedom Fighters, living in the treetops of an occupied forest, ambushing Fire Nation soldiers, and he is instantly magnetic. Katara is half in love with him inside a single episode. Sokka distrusts him inside 2, and the reason both of them are right is the engine of the whole story. Jet's parents were killed by the Fire Nation when he was small, and that grief has hardened into a hatred so total that he can no longer see the line between a soldier and a civilian. He has a plan to destroy a Fire Nation presence in a nearby valley, and the plan involves blowing a dam and flooding the entire valley, drowning a town full of ordinary Earth Kingdom people, his own people, on the theory that a few hidden enemy soldiers are worth the price. Sokka figures it out and races to evacuate the town, while Jet carries out the flood. The village survives, but not because anyone manages to stop Jet's plan itself. The dam gives way, just as he intended, and the flood tears through the valley, and it is only because Sokka has already gotten the townspeople out beforehand that nobody drowns. That is what puts him on a villain's list at all, and it is worth sitting with how young he is while he does it. This is a boy who has decided that the purity of his cause justifies the deaths of people who share his flag, and the story refuses to let his tragic backstory excuse it. Being a victim of the war did not make him gentle. It made him willing to become a smaller version of the thing that hurt him. And then, unusually for this show, Jet gets a second act. He turns up again in Book 2, having earnestly tried to reform, having sworn off the extremism, trying to start a new life inside the great walled city of Ba Sing Se, which is where the city's secret police get hold of him and rewrite his mind, and where his story ends. I am going to hold the details of Ba Sing Se's brainwashing machine until we reach the man who ran it, because he is much higher on this list, and he earns the full explanation. But Jet's death happens there, and it is one of the series' quietly infamous scenes, for a reason that has nothing to do with what is on screen, and everything to do with a fight behind the scenes. Jet is struck down defending his friends, and the series pointedly does not show him die. His friends gather around him, and as Aang's group has to leave, it is Jet himself who insists to Katara that he will be fine, even as Toph quietly tells the others that he is lying. Here Kamara fica Toph, afasta-se com os outros, ela quem diz a Sokka, baixinho, ele está a mentir. That is the whole death, an off-screen wound and a 2-word confirmation. The reason it is staged that way is genuinely one of the best pieces of trivia in Book 2. According to reporting collected by Sibara, Nickelodeon would not allow the show to depict a clear on-screen death for Jet, specifically because he is a child, and a children's network has firm rules about killing children where children can see it. So the creators cut around the fatal blow and had Sokka all but wink at the audience about how unclear it all was, and the death was left technically deniable. And then the writers did something wonderful and slightly petty about it. Mais tarde, uma reposição com legendas de curiosidades ocorrer no fundo do ecrã durante o episódio em que a peça de teatro recria aquela cena. Apareceu uma legenda que dizia para que fique registrado Jet está morto. The writers could not kill him cleanly on the network's dime, so they confirmed it in the margins, in a caption, like a footnote arguing with its own sense. I love that detail, because it tells you how much these people cared about the emotional truth of a moment that the rules would not let them show. The Jet ranks low on evil and high on tragedy. He is a wounded kid who nearly committed an atrocity and then spent his short second life trying to be better, only to be erased by a machine he never saw coming. He is the show's first real argument that trauma can make a villain, and that the villain it makes is still responsible for the flood he tried to cause. Hold that argument close, because we are going to test it against people with far more power and far higher body counts, and we are going to keep asking the same hard question. How much does the wound excuse? Hama tests it harder than anyone so far, because Hama's wound is genuine and enormous, and what she built out of it is a kind of horror the series never fully recovered from. She appears in a single Book 3 episode called The Puppet Master, and it is not an accident that it plays like a horror film. It first aired in early November of 2007, positioned as the show's Halloween special, and it earns the slot. Here is who she is. Hammer is an old woman from the Southern Water Tribe, and she is one of the last living pieces of a crime we will come back to at the very top of this list. The Fire Nation, over decades, conducted a series of raids on the Southern Water Tribe, designed specifically to hunt down and remove every waterbender. Because a waterbender is a soldier the Fire Nation cannot easily counter. Hammer was one of those waterbenders. She was captured, young, and taken across the world to a Fire Nation prison built to hold people exactly like her, a prison designed to keep water out of a waterbender's reach so she could never bend her way free. Imagine that, imprisoned for what you are, in a cell engineered around the specific thing you can do, watched by people who took you from your home at the bottom of the world. And in that cell, alone, over years, she invented something monstrous, and she invented it out of pure necessity. Hammer realised that water is not only in the sea and the rivers, it is in every living body. It is in the blood, in the muscle, in the guards walking past her cell, and she taught herself to reach into that water, the water inside a person, and move it, and so move the person like a puppet on strings, made of their own fluid. Bloodbending, she practiced first on the rats in her cell, and then, when the full moon came and gave a waterbender her greatest strength, she reached out and took control of a guard's own body and walked herself out of the inescapable prison, using his hands to open her door. It is, on its own terms, an incredible act of survival. It is also the birth of the single most violating power in the franchise. The rule matters, and it is one the series is very precise about, so I want to state it carefully. In the original series, bloodbending only works under a full moon, when a waterbender's power is at its peak. That is Hammer's law, and the show treats it as a hard limit. I flag that because The Legend of Korra later opened a door the original series kept firmly shut. In Korra we learn about a bloodbender named Jakoni and his sons, who can bloodbend without any moon at all, at any time, because of a rare inborn gift. But the full clean rule is this: in Aang's era, bloodbending needs the full moon. In Korra's era, a handful of naturally gifted people escape that limit entirely. If you only remember the first show, the moonless version can feel like a mistake. It is not. It is a deliberate, later expansion, and it belongs to a villain we will reach. What Hammer did with her freedom is where the tragedy tips into villainy. She did not simply escape and go home. She settled in a small Fire Nation town, and on the nights of the full moon, she began abducting local villagers, ordinary Fire Nation people, and imprisoning them in a cave, taking from strangers a version of exactly what was taken from her. When Katara meets her, there is a beautiful, painful stretch where the old woman is a mentor, the first southern waterbender Katara has ever met, someone who can teach her the traditions the Fire Nation tried to erase. And then the truth comes out, and Katara is forced into the worst thing she ever does. To stop Hammer from making Aang and Sokka kill each other under the full moon, Katara reaches out and bloodbends Hammer herself, seizes control of the old woman's body against her will to force her to stop. And Hammer, being dragged away in chains, laughs because she has won the only victory she wanted. She has made another southern waterbender into a bloodbender. She has passed the horror on. The character is voiced, by the way, by Tress MacNeille, a veteran you have heard 1,000 times without knowing it, a fixture of The Simpsons and Futurama, which is its own small piece of texture, a warm, familiar comedic voice hiding inside one of the show's coldest figures. And where does Hammer rank? Higher than Jet, I think. And it is close, because unlike Jet, she succeeded. She actually took innocent people and caged them, but she sits well below the true monsters, because everything she became was manufactured by the people at the top of this list. She is what the Fire Nation's cruelty produces when it is done with you, a victim who has been machined into a weapon and pointed back at the world. The show does not forgive what she does. It just makes very sure you know who built her. We are going to spend the middle of this list in The Legend of Korra, the sequel series set roughly 70 years after Aang's war. So if you have only ever watched the original, this is where I am officially crossing that boundary, and I will keep flagging it. Korra gives us 4 seasons and 4 very different villains, and the first of them is, to my mind, the best written antagonist the entire franchise ever produced, Amon. Here is the surface, the version the people of Republic City believe. Amon is a masked man who leads a revolution called the Equalists, and his cause is not nothing. In the decades since Aang's war, bending has gradually become a class system. Benders run the government, benders run the police, benders run organised crime, and non-benders, the ordinary people with no element, live underneath all of it, with no way to fight back. Amon speaks to that real grievance. He tells the crowds that the spirits themselves gave him the power to cleanse the world of bending, to make everyone truly equal, and then he proves it, on a stage, in front of thousands, by taking a powerful bender and permanently stripping his bending away with a touch. To a non-bender who's been stepped on his whole life, Amon looks like deliverance. He wears a plain mask and a plain message, and he is magnetic. Almost all of it is a lie, and the specific shape of the lie is why he tops his whole tier. Amon's real name is No Attack. He is not a spiritually chosen saviour. He is a bloodbender, one of the rare, naturally gifted ones I mentioned with Hummer, able to bloodbend without a moon at any time. He is the son of a water tribe crime boss named Yakoni, a man Aang himself once defeated by taking his bending. Yakone raised his 2 sons in the frozen wilderness for one purpose, to master bloodbending and take revenge on the Avatar's world. And what Amon does on that stage, the miracle that founds his entire movement, is not spirit magic at all. It is bloodbending, refined to a horrifying new use, reaching into the body and shutting down a bender's ability to bend by force. The anti-bending messiah is secretly a bloodbender of unmatched power, the very kind everyone fears above all others. The man who promises to free the world from bending, rules it with the one bending art everyone agrees should never exist. And he built the legend deliberately, down to the scar, to sell the story that he was a non-bender victim of bending cruelty. Amon told his followers that firebenders had burned his face and killed his family, and he painted a fake burn scar under that mask to match the tale. Every piece of him is theatre. The mask, the martyr's backstory, the spiritual language, all of it is a costume over a bloodbender running a con on an entire city's worth of desperate people. That is the 5th of the facts I most wanted to land tonight, and it is worth saying plainly. The Great Equalizer is a fraud built entirely out of the very power he claims to hate. The production history around him is as good as the writing. According to reporting on the show, Korra's first season was originally built as a completely self-contained miniseries with a real, definitive ending, before Nickelodeon expanded the order into 4 books. That is why Amon's arc feels so tight and so final. It was engineered to close a whole story in 1 season, and it does. There is also a design detail I adore. In the flashbacks to No Attack as a boy, the animators gave young Amon a hairstyle nearly identical to Korra's, and according to the Korra art book, Konietzko approved the design and only noticed the duplication too late to change it. Rather than fight it, he decided to read it as a quiet symbol of their shared water tribe roots, the hero and the villain wearing the same hair a generation apart. Even his mask is a nest of references. Analysis of the design notes that it blends Chinese and Korean mask traditions with an Egyptian nod, and the name itself points there. Amon, or Amun, is an Egyptian deity whose name means the Hidden One, and the mask's plain red forehead marking echoes that god's solar disk, which is almost too perfect for a masked leader whose entire power is concealment. And the equalist symbol he wears is not decorative nonsense either. It is a real Chinese character meaning, roughly, to equalize, and the red circle behind it is widely read as a blood moon, the moment a bloodbender is strongest. A buried confession hanging on the chest of a man who insists he is no bender at all. The politics under him have a real historical echo too, and it is more specific than people assume. The Equalist Uprising is often waved off as generic, anti-elite revolution, but writers who have dug into it point at the Taiping Rebellion of the mid-1800s in China, in which a man named Hong Xiuquan declared himself a messianic figure, the younger brother of Jesus, and led a vast movement to overturn the entire existing order. Amon, styling himself as a chosen saviour, meant to replace the Avatar as the world's spiritual authority, fits that mould far better than any 20th century revolution. His end is where the series did something it had never done before, when his brother, the councilman Tarlok, realises there is no escape and no future for either of them. He sets off an explosion aboard the boat the two brothers are fleeing in, killing them both. According to analysis of the franchise, that boat is the first suicide, and specifically a murder-suicide, ever depicted in Avatar, an astonishingly dark beat to get past a children's network, and the creators chose it deliberately as the only fitting end for the two poisoned sons of Yakini, two brothers raised as weapons, dying together in the dark water because their father made them into something that could not be allowed to keep living. One more thing keeps Amon out of the true monster tier, and it is a mechanical detail with a moral weight. His signature miracle, the permanent removal of bending, turns out not to be permanent at all. The original series had already shown Aang restore bending through energy bending, and Korra confirms that what Amon does can be undone. His victims can be made whole again. He is a liar whose greatest weapon is itself a kind of lie, a cruelty that could always be reversed. He ranks here, high in the tragic idealist tier, and no higher, because for all his brilliance and all his fraud, he never quite crosses into the territory of the people we have left, who wanted, in some broken way, to end an injustice. The men still above us wanted to start one. Still in Korra, one season on, we get the villain who is hardest to argue with even as he is trying to kill a teenage girl. Zahir and the small band of extremists around him, called the Red Lotus. This is the group a lot of fans will tell you is the best written of all, and I understand why, because Zahir is that rare thing, a villain whose philosophy the series cannot simply dismiss. The Red Lotus are an anarchist splinter of the White Lotus, the ancient secret society of the wise that, in the original series, worked in the shadows for balance and produced allies like Iroh. Zahir's faction broke away under a different belief. They think the whole ordering structure of the world, the kings and queens, and even the Avatar, is a cage, and that true freedom, real natural order, can only exist once you tear all of that authority down. It is nihilism dressed as liberation, and Zahir believes every word of it. He is not in it for money or a throne. He wants to end the very idea of thrones. His band is full. Zahir himself, who begins the season as a non-bender, and then in one of the strangest gifts in the franchise, becomes an airbender when the boundary between the spirit and human worlds shifted during an event called harmonic convergence. Airbending returned to people who had never had it, and Zahir was one of them, which is a bitter irony, because the air nomads were the gentlest people in the world, and here their sacred art lands in the hands of an anarchist assassin. The others are Pali, a combustion bender, the second the franchise has ever shown, Gazan, a lava bender, and Minghua, a waterbender born without arms, who has perhaps the boldest design in either series. Let me take those three, because each is a small marvel, and because they share a fate the writers built on purpose. Pali fires explosive beams from a third eye tattoo on her forehead, exactly like the assassin we will meet a little higher up, but she is the refined model. According to Screen Rant, she can curve her blasts around obstacles, a level of control the original combustion bender never had. She dies when the metal bender Suyin Beifong snaps a cage of metal around her head the instant she fires, so the explosion has nowhere to go but into herself. Gazan is the first lava bender ever depicted in Avatar, able to turn solid rock to molten stone, a rare and terrifying sub-skill of earthbending. And when he is finally cornered and facing a return to prison, he chooses instead to bring the whole structure down in lava around himself. Minghua turns the absence of arms into a weapon, forming long water tentacles that serve as arms she can extend, freeze into blades, or use to climb sheer walls. And she is arguably more dangerous because of her body, not despite it. She dies when Mako sends a current of lightning down through her own water arms and electrocutes her. Look at that list again. Pali killed by her own blast, Kazan by his own lava, Minghua by her own water, conducting the current. According to Screen Rant, this is a deliberate authorial motif. Every member of the Red Lotus is undone by the very element that define them. The same idea I asked you to hold on to all the way back at June and her scent-blinded beast. This show cannot stop telling you that the thing you turn into a weapon is the thing that eventually turns on you. What the Red Lotus actually do is monstrous enough to earn their place. They assassinate the Earth Queen, the ruler of the largest kingdom in the world, choking the air out of her once Zahir has his airbending, and they plunge her city into chaos in the name of freedom. And then they come for Korra herself, and their plan for her is genuinely chilling. They do not simply want to kill the Avatar, they want to kill her while she is in the Avatar state. Because in this world, if the Avatar dies in that state, the cycle of reincarnation breaks, and the Avatar is gone forever. So they poison her with a metallic poison, drive her into the Avatar state, and try to end not just a girl, but an institution that has anchored the world 10,000 years. It is the closest anyone in Korra comes to a cosmic crime. Zahir's own signature is at once the loveliest and the eeriest thing in the season. He achieves true, weightless flight, the only non-Avatar ever known to do it, by fully internalising the teachings of an ancient airbending guru named Legima, whose mantra is about letting go of your every earthly tether, emptying yourself, and becoming the wind. And on screen, the moment Zahir truly severs his last attachment to the world, he simply lifts off the ground and flies. Total detachment as a superpower. The man becomes unkillable and free precisely by ceasing to care about anything, which is the seductive and horrifying core of his own philosophy. The casting story here is one of the details I was most eager to share, because it is that good. Zahir is voiced by Henry Rollins, the frontman of the hardcore punk band Black Flag, which has already inspired casting for a philosophical anarchist. But the way he approached it is the part that stays with me. By most accounts, Rollins insisted on understanding the character before he would record a single line, reportedly grilling Konietzko and DiMartino about Zahir's backstory and his real motivations, so he knew exactly what he was playing. And when he did record, the story goes that he performed Zahir's most menacing scenes from a darkened corner of the recording booth, apparently so that Janet Varney, the actress who plays Korra, would feel genuine fear in their scenes together. By some accounts it worked, the real darkness in the room making her fear easier to find. There is something wonderful about that, a punk legend method, acting from the shadows to frighten a colleague into a better performance. Rollins was reportedly a little baffled later when the writers kept Zahir alive past his own season and even let him play for laughs in a cameo. But keeping him alive was the right call, because Zahir is a villain whose ideas do not die when he is caged. And that is finally why Zahir sits where he does, high in this tier, but not at the top. He is an ideologue and a murderer who tried to end the Avatar line, and none of that is small. But the series grants him a strange integrity. He believes his philosophy applies to himself as ruthlessly as to anyone else. He wants no crown, no wealth, no personal power. The people waiting for us at the summit wanted all three, and they wanted them built on a mountain of the dead. The last of the Korra villains, and the one who moves us from tragic idealists toward the outright tyrants, is Kuvira, the antagonist of the final season. And she may be the sympathetic villain the franchise engineered more carefully than any other. She calls herself the Great Uniter, and her project is, on paper, admirable. After the Earth Queen's assassination, the largest kingdom in the world has collapsed into lawlessness, warlords carving up the countryside, ordinary people unprotected. Kuvira, a brilliant metal bender and military commander, sets out to put it back together. And she does. She reunites the Earth Kingdom by force, town by town, restoring order. And the trouble is that the order she restores is fascism. The show is not shy about that word's texture. Her Earth Empire runs on re-education camps, forced labour, conscription, and annexation at the point of a weapon. Anyone who resists has disappeared. She builds the machinery of a 20th century dictatorship, and the series deliberately advances its whole aesthetic to match, pushing the technology of the final season from the 1920s look of earlier books into the 1940s. Tanks and long coats and mass rallies. The weapon she ultimately points at Republic City makes the parallel unmissable. Kuvira builds a colossal humanoid mecha suit powered by a cannon that fires concentrated spirit vine energy, and that giant gun closely resembles the Schwerer Gustav, the enormous railway artillery piece the Nazis actually built. She is a cartoon villain assembled out of the real machinery, the worst regime of the last century. And yet the series will not let you simply hate her, because it shows you exactly where she came from. Kuvira was an orphan. By the Avatar Wiki's account and Sibarar's, she was abandoned at the gates of the domed city of Zaofu at the age of 8, left there by parents who did not want her, and taken in by Suyin Beifong, who raised her almost as a daughter. Sit with who that makes her family. Suyin is the daughter of Toph, the beloved earthbending girl from the original series, which means the fascist Great Uniter of Korra's finale was raised inside the household of one of Aang's dearest friends. Toph is, a generation removed, the adoptive grandmother figure of the last villain the franchise ever produced. That is the kind of long, quiet connection this world is full of if you follow the threads. Her abandonment is the whole engine of her tyranny, and the story says so out loud. Late in the season, Kuvira breaks down and admits that she was rejected even by her own parents, and that she could not stand the thought of her country feeling that same abandonment, that same chaos, with no one to hold it together. So she held it together too tightly, with an iron fist, because a woman who was left as a child cannot bear to leave anyone unprotected, even if protecting them means crushing them. It is a textbook portrait of a wounded person becoming an authoritarian, and it is the reason Korra is finally able to reach her. When Korra sees their shared history, two orphaned girls, shaped by forces they did not choose, she offers Kuvira mercy instead of vengeance, and Kuvira, spared, surrenders. She is not killed. She lays down her power and gives herself up, which is a very intentional final note for the whole franchise to end on. An enemy defeated by being understood. There is a lovely stack of production history behind her too. The creators, according to interviews, specifically wanted the final big bad to be a female earthbending military dictator, because every previous major villain in both shows had been male, and the other bending types had already produced their monsters. She was, quite literally, a gap they set out to fill. Zelda Williams, who voices her, has said in interviews that she was actually hired for this 4th season arc, and that a small appearance she makes in the previous season was planted as an Easter egg for what was coming, a villain hidden in plain sight a year early. She built the character on her own, naturally relaxed, lower voice, and some fans have linked that choice to interviews where she has talked about reclaiming a register she once suppressed, which is a quietly moving thing to sit with about a performance this commanding. Even her look carries the theme. According to the art book, Konietzko's favourite version of her design gave her a floor-length braid and an asymmetrical cape, both cut in the end purely because they were too laborious to animate, and her final armour, those stacked strips of metal, exists because the storyboard artists decided she should metal bend her own armour into place mid-fight. Her uniform became the template for the entire Earth Empire that season, and the creators consciously gave her Korra's height, build, and force of personality, so that when the two of them finally clash, Korra is in a real sense fighting a version of her own past self, the angry, controlling young woman she used to be, grown into a nation-sized threat. Kuvira ranks above the idealists because she actually built the cage and locked millions of people inside it. She ranks below the true monsters because at the bottom of all that steel there is a frightened 8-year-old at a gate, and the series never lets you forget it. Before we leave Korra behind and return to Aang's era for the back half of this list, there is one more, and he sits at an odd angle to everyone else because his crime is both intimate and cosmic. Unalaq, the villain of Korra's second season. On the surface, he is a water tribe chief, a stern, pious man obsessed with the spirit world and convinced that the modern avatar has lost touch with her true spiritual purpose. Underneath, he is trying to end the world as we know it. What makes him land harder than a stranger ever could is that Unalaq is family. He is Korra's own uncle, the brother of her father, and he spends the first half of his season posing as the mentor her father never let her have, the wise relative who will finally teach her what being the Avatar really means. He earns her trust, drives a wedge between Korra and her father, and uses that trust to maneuver her into helping him with the thing he actually wants. And there is a deeper connection the series reveals about him, one that ties this whole middle stretch of the list together. The Wiki reveals that Unalaq was once himself a member of the Red Lotus, the same anarchist order Sahir would later lead. His fanatical certainty about the spirit world grew out of that world, which makes him a strange hinge between two seasons of villains. A man who came out of the same well as Zahir and went somewhere even darker, because what Unalaq does at harmonic convergence, when the spirit portals align and the barrier between worlds thins, is free Vaatu, the great spirit of darkness we talked about earlier, and fuse himself with it. He becomes the dark avatar, the mirror image of everything Korra is, a vessel for chaos, the way she is a vessel for light, and his stated goal is to usher in a permanent age of darkness, 10,000 years of Vaatu, loose in the world. This is about as high as ambition goes. He does not want a throne or a country. He wants to invert the fundamental balance of existence, and for a while he truly holds the power to do it. He fails, of course. Korra defeats the Dark Avatar at the convergence, and in the aftermath she makes a choice that reshapes her whole world, leaving the spirit portals open so that spirits and humans share the world again, rather than sealing them apart. So where does Unalaq rank on evil? It is honestly hard, because his scale of harm is theoretically the largest of any human villain in either series. An eternity of darkness dwarfs any war, but the show keeps him a step below the true monsters, for two reasons. His plan is so abstract, so cosmic, that it never has the ground-level cruelty of a man burning a village or killing a child in front of their family. And his fanaticism, however twisted, is a warped kind of faith. He sincerely believes the world is out of balance, and that he is the one meant to fix it, which is monstrous. But it is not the same species of thing as pure personal malice. Betraying your own niece to fuse with the spirit of chaos is a colossal evil. It is just, strangely, an impersonal one, and the villains still ahead of us are about to make everything very personal indeed. We are back in Aang's era now, and staying here for the rest of the climb, and we begin the upper half of this list with a man who was Book One's real human threat, Admiral Zhao. For most of that first season, Zuko is the face of the hunt for Aang, but Zuko is a banished prince, chasing redemption, and the truly dangerous man is the ambitious naval officer racing him for the same prize with far more resources and far fewer scruples. Zhao is pride and ambition with a fleet behind it, a man who will burn down anything, including the natural order of the world, to be the one who captures the Avatar and buys himself glory. He and Zuko are set against each other from the start, and this is a good moment to correct something people misremember, because it bears on how we rank the whole Fire Nation. Zuko is sometimes described as starting the series a weak or mediocre firebender. He does not. Early Zuko is already a capable, trained master. When he and Zhao settle their rivalry in an Agni Kai, a formal fire duel, Zuko wins. He beats Zhao. The reason Zuko spends the series feeling like a failure has nothing to do with a lack of skill, and everything to do with standing next to his prodigy sister, who we will get to. Keep that straight, because it matters for understanding just how monstrously gifted the top of this family is. Zhao, the grown admiral, loses a duel to a teenager, and it still does not humble him. What makes Zhao truly dangerous is not his bending though, it is what he is willing to do. Years before the events of the series, as a junior officer stationed in the Earth Kingdom, Zhao found his way into a hidden library, the very knowledge that Wan Chi-tong guards, and there he learned a secret almost no one in the world knew. He learned the mortal identity of the moon spirit. He learned that the spirit that governs the tides and, crucially, powers all of waterbending, lives in the physical world in the humble form of a white koi fish swimming in a sacred pool at the Northern Water Tribe, and Zhao filed that knowledge away and built a plan around it. A plan of breathtaking arrogance. He would go to the Northern Water Tribe and he would kill the moon. In the Siege of the North, the finale of Book 1, he does it. He reaches the sacred oasis, seizes the koi fish, and despite being begged not to, despite being told he could throw the entire world out of balance forever, kills the moon spirit with a burst of fire, and in that instant, all waterbending stops, everywhere, and the sky goes wrong. It is one of the most shocking things any villain does in the series. A man murdering a god out of spite and ambition. And it is exactly what Ko foreshadowed episodes earlier, without naming him. The response is the ocean spirit, La, rising up, merging with Aang in the avatar state into a towering avatar of water that fans nicknamed Koizilla, and wiping the Fire Nation fleet from the sea. Zhao's own reach for glory calls down the thing that destroys him. That theme again, the weapon turning on the hand. His end is pointed. As the water spirit closes in, Zuko, of all people, offers Zhao a hand to pull him to safety, and Zhao, too proud even in the last second of his life to accept mercy from the boy who beat him, refuses it, and is dragged down into the water, and presumed dead. I say presumed carefully, because his fate got a coda much later. In the Korra era material, it is revealed that Zhao did not simply die. He was pulled into the fog of lost souls, a spirit world prison, where the trapped wander in madness forever. And there is a lovely piece of authorial intent behind that. According to Screen Rant, the creators had already earmarked Zhao as the first soul lost to that fog when they wrote his watery end in Book 1. So the reveal was planned all along, not invented later, to reuse a character. An eternity of madness for a man whose defining trait was that he could never, ever let go of his pride. The casting is one of the franchise's best flexes, and there is a great story attached. Zhao is voiced by Jason Isaacs, who most of the world knows as Lucius Malfoy from the Harry Potter films. The creators wanted the specific quality Isaacs brought to a villain in the film The Patriot, that dignified, pragmatic menace, a bad man who is also unmistakably a gentleman. And this is the part I love. According to the creators, they assumed the real Jason Isaacs would be completely out of their reach, so they told their casting director to find someone like Jason Isaacs, a knockoff, a sound-alike. She went out and got them the actual Jason Isaacs. In the booth, the direction to him was essentially to be himself, just his American self, and he was reportedly happy to come back years later for a brief Zhao cameo in Korra. Even the visual language of the character was built to intimidate. According to the art book, a colour concept staged Zhao's ship and Zuko's together in a harbour, specifically so that Zhao's large, modern cruiser would tower over Zuko's small, obsolete, hand-me-down vessel. The status difference between the two rivals built right into their silhouettes. Zhao ranks here at the doorway of the upper tier because his ambition had no ceiling. He was willing to unbalance the entire cosmos for personal advancement, and he showed not a flicker of remorse doing it. What keeps him below the people still ahead is that his cruelty, for all its cosmic reach, was in service of ordinary careerism. He wanted to be important. He murdered the moon to get a promotion. The villains left on this list did not want a promotion. They wanted, in various ways, to own or erase the world, and some of them had already succeeded before Aang was ever born. Which brings us to a villain who never throws a punch worth remembering, and is somehow among the scariest figures in the entire series. Long Feng, the Grand Secretariat of Ba Sing Se, and the secret police he commands, the Dai Li. And I want to correct one thing straight away, because it is a common slip. Long Feng is not a Fire Nation villain. He is Earth Kingdom, through and through. He is the rot inside the good guy's greatest stronghold, which is exactly what makes him so unsettling. Ba Sing Se is supposed to be the safe place. It is the vast, walled capital of the Earth Kingdom, the one city the Fire Nation has never been able to crack, a refuge for millions. And when Team Avatar finally reaches it in Book 2, exhausted and desperate to warn the Earth King about the war, they discover that the city is a beautiful lie. The Earth King is a powerless figurehead. The real ruler of Ba Sing Se is Long Feng, a soft-spoken bureaucrat who governs from the shadows through the Dai Li, and the founding rule of his regime is a single, chilling sentence that the whole city has been trained to repeat. There is no war in Ba Sing Se. Speak of the war, mention the front, mention the 100 years of death outside the walls, and you disappear. Where you disappear to is the horror underneath the city. Beneath Lake Laogai, the Dai Li run a facility where dissidents are brainwashed, their memories rewritten, their inconvenient knowledge scrubbed away and replaced with docile loyalty. This is where Jet's story ends, the reformed boy we met much earlier, taken by the Dai Li, reprogrammed, and later mortally wounded by Long Feng himself when he breaks free. It is a genuine dystopia, hiding in the middle of a children's fantasy show, a secret police force maintaining a totalitarian peace by editing the minds of anyone who threatens the official story. Now, the real-world roots of all this are so specific and so grim that they make up 2 of tonight's 5 standout facts, so let me give them their space. First, the name. The Dai Li are named directly after a real man, Lieutenant General Dai Li, who ran the feared secret police and military intelligence service of Chiang Kai-shek's nationalist China through the 1920s, 30s and 40s. A spy master so shadowy, he was called the Chinese Himmler in the Western press. The head of a paramilitary network of surveillance, kidnapping and assassination. The show gave its brainwashing secret police the actual name of one of history's most infamous secret police chiefs, and layered a pun on top, because the characters can also read as agent, or proxy, and gesture at the conical hats the agents wear. Second, the place. Lake Laogai, where the brainwashing happens, is named after the real Laogai, the Chinese system of reform through labour, the network of penal and re-education camps used to ideologically convert political prisoners, to force them to think correctly. So the underground mind control prison of Ba Sing Se is named after an actual gulag system built to reform people's beliefs. The parallel is not subtle, and it was never meant to be. Even Long Feng's own name is a trap. The Wiki adds that it reads as Dragon Phoenix, which is the classic imperial pairing, but it also invokes a Cantonese idiom about putting on an elaborate show of dragons and phoenixes, staging a grand display meant to deceive, which is precisely what he does with an entire city. And the city itself carries the theme in its bones. Its name means roughly eternally solid or perpetually strong city, and its layout is modelled on imperial Beijing, an outer wall echoing the Great Wall, an inner palace echoing the Forbidden City. Long Feng rules a fortress designed to look like the safest place on Earth, while functioning as its tightest cage. Here is the fact about him that I find hardest to shake, and it is the third of tonight's 5 to land in this one chapter. By some fan readings of the show's art book commentary, Longfeng's design and craft come across as rated above Fire Lord Ozai's. The suggestion is that the writing, the design, the animation, and the performance make Ba Sing Se's Spy Master feel more nuanced and more nefarious than the series' actual final villain. Think about that. The man who created this world looked at his own genocidal Fire Lord and at his soft-spoken city bureaucrat, and found the bureaucrat the more compelling piece of villainy. And there is a real argument there, because Longfeng represents the kind of evil the Fire Lord does not. Ozai wants to burn the world. Longfeng wants to manage it, to keep it quiet and controlled and asleep. And the banality of that, the paperwork and the pleasant tone, and the mind-wiped citizens smiling in the tea shops, is its own special nightmare. And yet the series is careful to remind you that even this master manipulator is not the top of the food chain, and it does it with one of the great reversals in Book 2. When Azula infiltrates Ba Sing Se, Longfeng tries to use her and then tries to betray her, confident that in a battle of manipulation he is the superior player. He is wrong. Azula simply looks at his own Dai Li agents and asks them a quiet question about who they really believe holds the power now, and one by one they switch their loyalty to her. Longfeng, the man who rewrote 1,000,000 minds, is outmaneuvered and discarded by a 14-year-old. His secret police turned against him with a sentence. It is the moment the show tells you that as terrifying as institutional, bureaucratic evil is, there is something even colder waiting above it. A person for whom manipulation is not a tool, but a nature. There is one last dark irony to leave you with here, the second of tonight's 5 that belongs to this chapter. The Dai Li, this instrument of surveillance and mind control, were not founded by a tyrant. Per the Avatar Wiki, they were created in universe by Avatar Kyoshi herself, one of Aang's own past lives, one of the heroes, to protect Ba Sing Se's cultural heritage after an uprising. A hero built the secret police. Centuries of drift and corruption turned Kyoshi's protectors into Longfeng's brainwashers. If you want a single image for how this show thinks about evil, it is that. The most sinister institution in the Earth Kingdom began as an avatar's good intention, and nobody was watching closely enough to stop what it became. Now for a villain who never says a single word and is still one of the standouts of Book 3. The show never gives him a name. The characters call him Combustion Man, and Sokka, who names most things in this show, also tries out Sparky Sparky Boom Man. And I want to underline the no-name point, because it matters. He is never named in the series. Any real name you have seen for him is not canon. He is a hulking, silent firebending assassin, and he is pure function, a weapon that walks. His power is unlike anything else in the original series. Combustion Man does not throw fire. He channels his chi through a tattoo of a third eye in the centre of his forehead and fires a concentrated beam that detonates whatever it hits. An explosive blast he can aim across enormous distances like a sniper. This is a firebending sub-style, combustion bending, and it appears exactly once in the original show, in him, and then not again until Pali in Korra, which is a link we already touched on. This third eye invites an obvious real-world comparison, and fans have long connected it to the third eye of the Hindu god Shiva, the eye that, in myth, incinerates what it looks upon. It is a good design because it makes his lethality legible at a glance. You see where the danger comes from. It is written on his face. There is a wonderfully strange piece of trivia about his backstory, and it is a lesson in how much of this world lived outside the episodes themselves. In the series, Combustion Man has metal prosthetics, an artificial arm and leg, and the show never explains why. The explanation existed, but only in one place. According to CBR, the detail that he blew off his own arm and leg while mastering his explosive power, that he was maimed by the very art that makes him dangerous, appeared solely on Nickelodeon's official Avatar website, which no longer exists. So the origin of one of Book 3's scariest villains lived on a webpage that has since gone dark, and if you did not read it at the time, it is simply gone. A piece of canon that evaporated with a defunct website. And notice the theme it confirms one more time. Even his backstory is the weapon turning on its wielder. He crippled himself learning to destroy. The design went through a revealing change too. According to the art book and the wiki, Combustion Man was originally drawn with a full head of hair, modelled on a friend of the creators. It was the head writer, Aaron E. Haas, who pushed for him to be shaved bald, specifically so that the third eye tattoo would dominate his silhouette, so that the first thing you register about him, from any distance, is that eye on his forehead. It is a small note that tells you how deliberately this show built its threats, sacrificing a little in joke about a friend's face for a cleaner, more frightening silhouette. Where he comes from in the plot adds its own bleak note of characterization. Combustion Man is a hired killer, and the person who hires him, in Book 3, is Zuko. At a low point in his arc, trying to have Aang killed to close off his own past for good. It is a decision Zuko comes to regret with his whole soul, and when he tries to call the assassin off, Combustion Man simply ignores him and keeps hunting. Because he is not loyal, he is contracted, and a contract does not care about its employer's change of heart. That is its own quiet horror, a weapon you cannot recall once you have pointed it. His death is the payoff of a running idea and the setup for a callback 70 years later. In the end, it is Sokka, the non-bender, who takes him down. In the middle of a fight, as Combustion Man lines up a killing blast, Sokka's boomerang appears to catch him in exactly the wrong spot, and by most fan accounts of the scene, his focus breaks at the instant he fires. The blast backfires, and the man who spent his life detonating other things detonates himself, which sets up the callback that ties the two shows together, the clearest reused villain in the whole franchise. When Pali, the combustion bender of the Red Lotus, is finally stopped in Korra, she is stopped by the very same principle, a projectile, disrupting that exact spot on the forehead at the moment of firing, so that the blast has nowhere to go but back into her. Two combustion benders, 70 years apart, the only two the franchise ever shows, and both are undone by a small thrown object hitting the third eye. That is not a coincidence. That is the writers telling you, once more, that the more concentrated and specialised your power, the more precise and total the single weakness that ends it. Combustion Man ranks up here, above the schemers, for a simple reason. He's a professional murderer with no cause at all, no wound, no ideology, no ambition even. June, all the way back at the bottom, was also a mercenary, but June hunted and captured. Combustion Man kills, methodically, for pay, and pursues a group of children across the world to do it, and cannot be reasoned with, cannot be bought off, cannot even be recalled by the man who paid him. He is the coldest kind of danger, a person who has made himself into pure instrument. But even an instrument is not the same as an architect, and the last four names on this list are the architects, the ones who designed the cruelty the rest of the world had to survive. And the first of them is the one I have been putting off, because she is the villain this whole show is most alive about. Princess Azula, Ozai's daughter, Zuko's younger sister, a firebending prodigy of 14, and the most purely terrifying antagonist in the original series on a moment-to-moment basis. Because unlike her distant, throned father, Azula is right there, in the field, hunting you personally, and she almost never loses. Let me start with the thing everyone remembers, the fire itself. Azula's flames burn blue, and that is not a stylistic accident. It is an explicit statement of her superiority. According to co-creator Michael DiMartino, the effects team coloured her fire blue specifically to symbolise that she was a firebending prodigy, more skilled than her brother, and it happens to line up with real combustion science, where a blue flame is a hotter flame. So every time she is on screen, the colour of her fire is silently telling you that she is operating at a level above almost everyone else in the room. She also, at 14, can generate lightning, the rarest and most dangerous firebending skill, the technique that requires perfect control of one's own chi. And this is where the show's own rules get interesting, because there is a contradiction buried in Azula that the writers only ever enforce on the hero. The rule, as Zero lays it out, is that generating lightning requires inner peace, a mind free of turmoil and emotional conflict, which is precisely why Zuko, all knotted up with shame and rage, cannot do it for most of the series. But look at Azula. She is not at peace. She is as internally tortured as anyone in the entire cast, and she generates lightning at will, effortlessly, from childhood. The Wiki confirms this contradiction is real and never resolved. The peace requirement is only ever a wall for the good guy. The villains, Azula, and later her father, produce lightning out of what looks like pure controlled fury. You can read that as a plot hole, or you can read it, as I prefer to, as the series tacitly admitting that a certain kind of cold, total self-command can imitate peace closely enough to fuel the same power, right up until the moment it shatters. Because Azula does shatter, and the writers plant the crack in her very first proper scene. According to the Wiki, the first time we really meet her, she is running a lightning drill and she stops, furious, to do it again, because a single strand of her hair has come loose. One hair, that is the tale. Her entire identity is built on absolute, perfect control of herself, of her fire, of the people around her, and the whole tragic architecture of her arc is set up so that the payoff, at the very end, is her arriving at her final duel with her hair wild and loose, and hanging in her face, the outward sign, visible to Zuko across the courtyard, that the control has finally failed. The show tells you how she will break in the first gesture it ever gives her, and you do not notice until the second watch. What she does across books 2 and 3 earns her place near the top. She is the one who leads the hunt for Aang once the stakes get serious. She is the one who engineers the fall of Ba Sing Se, out-manipulating Long Fong as we saw, turning his own secret police against him, and taking the impenetrable city from the inside in a matter of days. And she is the one who, in the caverns beneath that city, in the crossroads of destiny, fires the lightning bolt that strikes Aang in the back and kills him in the moment he is opening himself to the Avatar state. He only survives because Katara has a small amount of sacred spirit water and manages to revive him. But make no mistake, Azula killed the Avatar. For a few seconds, the 14-year-old ended the reincarnation cycle that has anchored the world for 10,000 years, and she did it without breaking stride. That is a scale of harm that puts her among the worst. The voice behind all of this is the first of 3 things about this chapter I could not wait to tell you, and it is one of the most haunting pieces of casting in the whole production. Azula is voiced by Grey Delisle, also credited as Grey Griffin, and the same actress voices Kya, Katara's mother, the woman murdered by the Fire Nation's southern raiders. Sit with that. One performer gives voice to the Fire Nation's cruelest daughter, and to the gentle Water Tribe mother that nation's soldiers killed, the perpetrator and one of the perpetrator's victims sharing a single throat. And by some accounts, Delisle found the recording of Azula's final breakdown overwhelming, as if she were finding the character's buried humanity in the exact moment of her collapse. The actress cried playing the villain, falling apart. When you rewatch that ending, knowing it, the rawness in the performance stops being a special effect and becomes a real person mourning a fictional girl, and what a collapse it is. In the finale, everything Azula built on control comes apart at once. Mai and Ty Lee, her oldest friends, betray her at the Boiling Rock, choosing love and mercy over fear of her, which we covered near the bottom of this list. And then her own father, in the moment of his supposed triumph, discards her. Ozai names himself Phoenix King and leaves to burn the Earth Kingdom personally, and he leaves Azula behind with the lesser title of Fire Lord, a consolation prize, a demotion dressed as an honour. The one relationship Azula organised her entire self around, her father's approval, is revealed as conditional and cheap, and she unravels. She becomes paranoid, banishing servant after servant, for imagined disloyalty. She hallucinates her mother, Ursa, in the mirror, the mother she believed never loved her, and she argues with the reflection. By the final Agni Kai, when Zuko and Katara come to face her, she is not a prodigy anymore. She is a frightened, broken girl with wild hair, and Zuko can see it. He offers to fight her one-on-one, and the duel ends with Katara freezing her and chaining her to a grate, and Azula chained, breathing fire and weeping at the same time, screaming to where the show leaves her. Not defeated in glory, just broken. Which brings me to the second fact, and it is one of the great what-ifs of animation. Azula was supposed to be redeemed. According to the head writer, Aaron Ehas, there was a plan for a 4th season, a book 4, in which Azula would get the arc Zuko got, in which her brother would be there for her, the way their uncle, Iroh, was there for him, in which the broken girl in chains might be slowly put back together. It never happened. The disastrous live-action film adaptation pulled focus and resources, and the 4th season died on the vine, and so Azula's story simply stops at her worst moments, unhealed. And I want to be very clear about this, because people get it wrong constantly. Azula is never redeemed on screen. In the comics that continue the story, in The Search, she nearly kills her own restored mother and flees into the night. And in Smoke and Shadow she returns leading a group of imposters, dressed as vengeful ghosts called the Kamurakage, kidnapping Fire Nation children to destabilise Zuko's rule. And after another duel with her brother, she vanishes again, and is, to this day, never heard from again, not even in Korra. The story is deliberately left open, a wound that never closes. Do not let anyone tell you she got better. The show that could have healed her was cancelled before it could. The development history around her is full of roads not taken, and 2 of them are worth your time. The whole trio of Azula, Mai, and Ty Lee, according to the art book, replaced a scrapped idea for an elite ninja-like squad of female firebenders who would hunt Aang, an idea that never found its way into the series and got reworked into the 3 girls with deliberately non-overlapping powers, only one of whom, Azula, actually firebends. There are also fan-circulated stories of a cut Book 3 subplot involving an arranged marriage for Azula, along with an early design that dressed her in heavily Phoenix-themed armour, the phoenix being the bird that burns itself to grow stronger, a fitting symbol for her self-improvement obsession, though none of it is confirmed, and it never made it into the series. And then there is the fact that reframes her and Toph both, the second of tonight's 5 best that lands here. According to the creators, in the Newsweek retrospective on the finale, Azula and Toph were both originally written as male characters and only became female during development. Think about what that changed. 2 of the best loved and richest characters in modern animation, the earthbending champion and the firebending prodigy, the hero and the villain, both started life on the page as boys. And the decision to flip them is one of the quiet reasons this show still feels ahead of its time. So where does Azula rank? Very near the top, and I will tell you exactly why she is not at the very top, because it is the crux of how this show thinks. Azula is a murderer, a conqueror, and a torturer of the people around her, and her body count and her cruelty are enormous. But Azula is also, unmistakably, a victim. She is a child, moulded by a monster, given power and withheld love in exactly the proportions designed to produce a weapon. And the series makes sure you understand that the thing that broke her was built into her from the start by the man she was trying to please. Her evil is real, and it is also manufactured, and the person who manufactured it is still ahead of us on this list. When you weep for the girl in chains, and I do, you should remember who put her there long before Katara did. The top 3 on this list are all Fire Nation, all from a single poisoned family tree, or the machine it built, and the first of them is not a prince or a Fire Lord at all. He is a retired old man living quietly with his mother in a hillside village, and he is as understatedly hateful as anyone in the entire series. Yon-Ra, the man who killed Katara's mother. To understand him, you have to understand the crime he served. The Fire Nation, over the decades of the war, conducted a campaign against the Southern Water Tribe designed to hunt down and eliminate every last waterbender, because waterbenders were the tribe's warriors and its future, and a people with no benders is a people that cannot fight back. These were the Southern Raiders, and Yon-Ra was the commander who led them. On one of those raids, he came to Katara's village looking for the last waterbender hidden there, and he found Katara's mother, Kia. Here is the detail that turns this from a war crime into something that will sit in your chest, and it is a correction I want to state precisely because it is easy to get wrong. The last waterbender in that village was not Kia, it was Katara, a small child. Kia, facing the man who had come to kill the tribe's last bender, lied. She told Yon-Ra that she was the one he was looking for, that she was the last waterbender, in order to draw his attention away from her daughter and save her child's life. And Yon-Ra killed her for it. Katara's mother died, buying her daughter's life with a lie, and Katara spent years believing she had simply lost her mother to the war, not knowing that her mother died in her place, protecting the very gift that would define Katara's life. In Book 3, in the episode The Southern Raiders, Zuko, newly turned to the group and desperate to make amends, gives Katara the one thing no one else can, the identity and the location of the man who did it, and the two of them go to find Yon-Ra. What they find is pathetic in the exact way the series intends. The fearsome commander is now a snivelling, cowardly old man, living with his elderly mother, who berates him, jumping at shadows, utterly stripped of the power he once wielded. Katara confronts him, and she has every reason and every right, and she brings a storm of waterbending down on him, and she stops the rain in midair, freezing every drop, and she looks at this whimpering old coward, and she chooses not to kill him. She spares him, not out of forgiveness, because there is none in her for him, but out of something closer to contempt, a recognition that this pitiful creature is not worth becoming a killer over. That choice is the whole moral weight of Yon-Ra's place on this list. Katara sparing him is not a gift to him. It is the show refusing to let the villain turn its hero into a version of himself, and it throws his particular evil into sharp relief, because Yon-Ra is the smallest kind of monster there is. He is not an ideologue. He has no cause he believes in, no philosophy, no vision of a better world, however twisted. He was a functionary of genocide who murdered an unarmed mother in front of her home and then retired to a quiet life. And the only thing left of him, decades later, is fear for his own skin. There is no tragedy in him, no wound the story asks you to weigh. He is just a man who did the cruelest possible thing for the emptiest possible reason, following orders down a chain of command, and then lived comfortably with it until the daughter of the woman he killed appeared at his door. I placed him this high above brilliant, terrifying Azula, and I want to defend that, because it is a real argument the show makes. Azula is more powerful, more accomplished, more dangerous, by every measurable standard. But Azula is a shaped child, and Yon-Ra is a grown man, with nothing shaping him but his own smallness. He chose the murder of a defenceless woman, with a completely clear head, and no one abusing him into it, and he felt nothing about it until his own safety was on the line. Raw, petty, uncomplicated cruelty in a person old enough to know exactly what he was doing ranks, for me and I think for the series, above the spectacular evil of a girl her father built. And the man who gave the order that put Yon-Ra on that road, the Fire Lord who commanded the Southern Water Tribe raids in the first place, is the next name on this list. Fire Lord Ozai. He is the least seen of the three Fire Lords at the top of this ranking, appearing mostly in flashback and shadow, but do not mistake how little screen time he gets for how much harm sits at his feet. Ozai is the middle link in the family that ran the 100-Year War. He is the son of Sozin, the man who started it, and the father of Ozai and Yoro, and the grandfather of Zuko and Azula. He inherited the war, and he pressed it hard for the better part of his long reign. Let me set the family straight while we are here. because people scramble it constantly. The line runs Sozin, then his son Azulon, then Azulon's sons Iroh and Ozai, then Ozai's children Zuko and Azula. 3 generations of Fire Lords, each handing the war down like an heirloom. Azulon's largest crime is the one we just met the ground level result of. It was Azulon who ordered the Southern Water Tribe raids, the systematic hunt to strip the Southern Water Tribe of every waterbender, the campaign that sent Yon-Ra to Katara's village and killed Kya. That is not a small thing. That is an order to eliminate an entire people's benders, an act of cultural extermination against a tribe at the far bottom of the world that posed his empire no real threat, and by the time of the original series, it had very nearly succeeded. When we meet Katara, she is the last waterbender in the entire Southern Water Tribe, a whole tradition reduced to one self-taught girl, and that near total erasure is Azulon's doing. He is an architect of genocide against the Water Tribe, the way his father was against the air nomads. But the detail that fixes Azulon's coldness in your mind is a family one, and it comes to us most fully through the comics, so I will flag it as extended canon beyond the original show. Late in his reign, Ozai, the younger son, went to his father and asked to be named heir in place of Iroh, the elder, who was grieving the death of his own son, Lu-Ten. Azulon was enraged by the presumption, and his punishment was almost incomprehensibly cruel. He commanded Ozai to know the pain of losing a firstborn son by killing his own firstborn, by killing the child, Zuko. That is the order. A grandfather, to punish his son's ambition, decrees the murder of his own grandchild. Zuko's mother, Ursa, intervened to save her boy, and the way she did it, revealed in the comic The Search, is the darkest turn in the whole family history. According to that story, Ozai did not carry out the order, but Azulon died that same night, poisoned with an untraceable poison that Ursa herself had concocted, and Ozai took the throne over his brother. The show only ever tells you, vaguely, that Azulon passed away and Ozai became Fire Lord. The comic recasts that quiet succession as a patricide, a son murdering his father to seize a crown, with the Queen's own poison as the weapon. I need to be honest about one thing here, because this channel has been caught out on it before, and it is worth saying out loud. You will see the name Ilah given for Azulon's wife, the mother of Ozai and Iroh, all over the internet. That name is not canon. It is fan invention, and it has never appeared in any official material. Azulon's wife is, in the actual canon of the series and the comics, simply unnamed. So I will not name her, because inventing a detail to sound authoritative is exactly the failure I refuse to hand you. What we know is real enough. The woman existed. She was the mother of the 2 men who would define the war's final generation, and the record leaves her a blank. Where Azulon ranks is a matter of scale against intimacy. He ordered a genocide, which is as high a crime as this list contains, and that alone justifies his place near the summit. What holds him a step below the final 2 is partly how remote he is, a distant figure issuing orders from a throne, and partly that the coldest thing about him, the command to kill his own grandson, is a cruelty the story ultimately roots around. His son did not obey it. But make no mistake, the man who nearly wiped out the Southern Waterbenders, and who ordered the death of a child to teach a lesson about ambition, belongs exactly here, in the last 3. And the difference between him and the 2 names still to come is only a difference of degree. The Fire Nation's evil at the top is not one villain. It is a bloodline, and we have one more generation to climb down into, and one more to climb back up to, because the man who started all of it is next. Fire Lord Sozin, the great-grandfather, the first domino. Every villain we have talked about tonight, every raid, and every fire, and every broken child, traces back in some way to a decision this one man made. And the show is unusually careful to show you that he did not begin as a monster. He began as a boy with a friend. That friend was Roku, and their story is one of the most important things in the entire series, so let me lay it out plainly. Sozin and Roku were born on the same day, grew up together, were the closest of friends, and Roku, it turned out, was the Avatar. The Fire Nation Avatar and the Fire Nation Prince, best friends, the two most powerful young men in their nation, bound together since childhood. And for a while that friendship held even as their paths diverged, Roku off mastering the four elements, Sozin ascending to the throne. But Sozin had an idea, and the idea was the poison. He looked at the Fire Nation, prosperous and advanced, and he decided that its prosperity was a gift it had a duty to spread by force to the other three nations, whether they wanted it or not. He proposed, essentially, an empire, and Roku refused him and warned him, and at one point physically stopped him, telling his oldest friend that if he ever tried it again, Roku would end him. The break between them is where Sozin's evil truly begins, and it is a slow, cold thing, rather than a single wicked act. Years later, Roku's home is threatened by a volcanic eruption, and in the chaos, poisoned by the fumes, the Avatar is failing, and Sozin comes to help him. And for a moment, the old friendship flickers back to life, and then Sozin makes a calculation. He looks at his dying friend, the one man in the world with the power and the will to stop his ambitions, and he realises that Roku's death serves him, and he leaves. He abandons Roku to die in the smoke and ash, choosing his empire over the person he had loved longest. That single moment of arithmetic, friendship weighed against conquest and found lighter, is the true origin of the 100-Year War, because with Roku gone, the next Avatar would be born into the air nomads, and Sozin knew it, and he knew a comet was coming. A great comet passed near the world, and its presence amplifies firebending to staggering, terrible levels, and Sozin used that first passing, the comet that would later bear his own name, to launch a coordinated attack on all four air temples at once, and wipe the air nomads from the earth. It was genocide, plain and unqualified, an entire peaceful people, monks and children, targeted for extermination in a single stroke, and its specific purpose was to kill the new Avatar before the Avatar could grow up and threaten him. This is the event the series treats with more gravity than anything in its history, and the creators have been clear about its real-world weight. The Fire Nation is built on Imperial Japan, an island nation turned industrial and expansionist, with unmistakable parallels to Nazi Germany layered on top, the war machines and the airships, and the air nomad genocide is written as a Holocaust analogue, the deliberate erasure of a whole culture. It is not a fantasy war beat. It is the show reaching for the darkest thing the 20th century did and putting it at the root of its story. And here is the correction I most want to get exactly right, because this channel has been called out on it before, and it matters enormously. Aang did not witness the genocide. He was not there. Before Sozin's attack ever came, Aang, a boy overwhelmed by the burden of being told he was the Avatar, had already run away from the Southern Air Temple and had been caught in a storm at sea and had frozen himself in a state of suspended animation inside an iceberg in the Avatar state, where he remained for 100 years. He fled before the comet came. He did not see his people die. He learned about it a century later, as a child waking into a world where everyone he had ever known was long dead, and his entire nation had been erased while he slept. That distinction is the whole emotional core of Aang's grief. He did not survive the genocide. He missed it and woke to its aftermath, which is arguably a crueler thing to carry. And it means Sozin failed at the one thing the genocide was for. He murdered an entire people to kill the Avatar, and the Avatar was not there. Aang had already vanished into the ice, so Sozin spent the rest of his very long life searching fruitlessly for the Last Airbender, for the Avatar he was certain must be out there somewhere, and he never found him because the boy was frozen at the bottom of the sea. Sozin died, an old man, having committed the greatest crime in the history of his world and failed at its actual objective, his war grinding on without resolution, handed down to his son Azula, and then to his grandson. He killed a nation for nothing. A couple of smaller threads are worth pulling. before we leave him. The comet that amplifies firebending and carries his name has a real-world echo, a roughly 100-year cycle, mirroring the way a great comet returns to our own sky on a long, regular schedule. A kind of generational visitor that a grandparent and a grandchild might each see once. Some fans have pointed out that his name may carry connotations of revival and progress, which would fit how Sozin justified himself, an emperor who told himself he was bringing progress and renewal to a backward world while he burned it. And there is a bitter bit of family geometry the series buries in Zuko. Because Ursa is a descendant of Roku, and Ursa is Zuko and Azula's mother, Zuko is descended from both Sozin and Roku at once. The bloodline of the man who started the war and the bloodline of the Avatar who tried to stop him converge in one conflicted teenager, which is the show's quiet way of saying that the capacity for both is always sitting in the same person. So Sozin ranks second, the architect of the original sin, the genocide that everything else grew out of. Why not first? Because Sozin, for all his monstrousness, at least told himself a story about progress and destiny, a delusion of purpose, however evil. He believed, in his poisoned way, that he was building something. The man at the very peak of this ranking had no such illusion. He inherited the finished machine of the Fire Nation's cruelty, and he wanted, simply, to watch the rest of the world burn and to rule the ashes, because ruling ashes appealed to him. That is Sozin's great-grandson, the Phoenix King, and he is where we end. Fire Lord Ozai, the most evil villain in Avatar, and the man we opened on, sitting in shadow in that throne room, where the animators would not let you see his face. I want to come back to that image now, because the way this show built Ozai is inseparable from why he lands at the top, and it is as deliberate a piece of character design as anything in the whole series. For most of 3 seasons, you never see Ozai clearly. In every early appearance, his face is hidden, kept in shadow, or, in the Book 1 flashback episode, Zuko alone, framed so that his eyes are cut off above the top of the shot. His first appearance outside a flashback comes early in the series, and even then he is a voice from the dark, ordering Azula to hunt down her brother and her uncle. His full face is withheld until Book 3. This is not laziness or budgets, it is the character. Ozai is designed as a dread before he is a man. He is the pressure you feel in a room, the reason his own children flinch, a presence rather than a person. And by keeping his face off the screen, the series makes him larger and colder than any close-up could. When you finally do see him at full power, robed and enthroned, and declaring himself the Phoenix King, the reveal has the weight of a monster stepping out of a nightmare, because you have felt him for 50 episodes without ever quite looking at him. His crimes are the crimes of the whole family, concentrated and finished. He rules the Fire Nation at the war's climax, the 3rd generation to press it, and his plan, once Sozin's comet returns and firebending is amplified to that same world burning level his great-grandfather used, is as nakedly genocidal an ambition as the series contains. Ozai intends to use the comet to burn the entire Earth Kingdom to the ground, the whole continent, every forest and every town and every person in them, to reduce the last free nation to ash and rule what remains as the self-crowned Phoenix King of a scorched world. Sujin at least dressed his conquest in a story about spreading prosperity. Ozai has dropped even that pretense. He does not want to civilize the Earth Kingdom or absorb it. He wants to erase it and reign over the cinders, and the show lets you sit with how that is somehow worse, an evil that has stopped bothering to justify itself. And then there is what he does to his own children, which is the intimate horror underneath the world, ending one. We have already climbed through Azula, the daughter he shaped into a weapon, and then discarded the moment she had served her purpose, leaving her behind with a hollow title while he flew off to burn a continent, breaking the one person who organised her entire self around his approval. But the wound that defines the whole series is the one he gave his son. When Zuko, at 13, spoke out of turn in his father's war room, out of simple compassion for Fire Nation soldiers being used as bait Ozai demanded he answer for the disrespect in an Agni Kai, a fire duel, and when the boy realised he would have to fight his own father and begged for mercy, refusing to fight, Ozai burned him. He pressed fire into the left side of his 13-year-old son's face, scarring him for life, and then banished him and told him he could only return if he captured the Avatar, a task Ozai surely believed impossible. A father maiming and exiling his child for the crime of having a conscience. Everything Zuko spends the series trying to heal, and everything that makes his eventual turn to good so hard won, was put there by Ozai's hand, in fire, when he was a boy. The voice that carries all of this is the second standout fact of the night, and it is a delightful one to sit with. Fire Lord Ozai is voiced by Mark Hamill, the same Mark Hamill who is Luke Skywalker, as hopeful a hero as modern film has, and who is also, in a completely separate career, the definitive voice of the Joker in animation, one of the great voices of chaos and cruelty. Both of those live in the man playing Ozai, and you can hear the second one, the controlled menace, the delight underneath the threat. And this next part stays with me. Hamill has said that when he was recording it, he thought the show was too good to survive. He found the writing so smart, a little too deep, and a little too intelligent for an animated show aimed at children at the time, that he assumed it would be cancelled. A voice as experienced as any in the business looked at these scripts and figured they were too clever to last, which tells you exactly how unusual this show was for its moment. There is a lovely lesser-known fact tucked next to that one. Hamill did not only voice Ozai. Some fans have pieced together that he may have secretly voiced a second, much smaller character in the series as well, an odd little background spirit glimpsed in the wilderness. So the actor giving voice to the scariest human in the series might also, unnoticed, be hiding inside a strange background creature, which is the kind of double-duty voice actors do all the time and almost no one notices. Now the climax, because how Ozai is defeated is the single most important moral decision the entire series makes, and it is the reason I can rank him first without a shred of hesitation about the show's own judgment of him. When Aang finally faces Ozai during the comet, the story has backed its hero into a terrible corner. Everyone around Aang, and much of the audience, expects him to kill the Fire Lord, because how else do you stop a man about to incinerate a continent? But Aang is the last of the air nomads, raised by monks in a culture of total reverence for life, and to murder, even to murder Ozai, would be to betray the last living piece of the people Sozin tried to erase. Aang refuses to become a killer, and the story gives him a way out that it planted long in advance. On the night before the battle, a lion turtle, one of the ancient first beings of this world, teaches Aang a lost art called energy bending, the ability to bend the energy within another person. And in the final confrontation, at the moment, Ozai has him beaten. Aang enters the Avatar state and uses energy bending, not to kill Ozai, but to reach into him and strip his firebending away, permanently, taking the fire out of the Fire Lord and leaving the man alive, but powerless, to be imprisoned rather than martyred. Aang defeats the most evil man in the world by refusing to sink to his level, and it is the thesis of the entire series in a single act. The production history behind that ending is rich, and it is worth telling, because it shows how carefully it was chosen. By most accounts, from interviews the show's team gave years later, the decision to have Aang spare Ozai through energy bending was not a late compromise. It was written into the series Bible years before, a founding intention. The creators knew from early on that their pacifist hero could not end his journey by killing, and they built the whole machinery of the finale, the lion turtle, the lost art, toward giving him another way. The finale itself grew from a planned 3 episodes into 4, simply because, in their words, they had more material than they could fit, and an executive discreetly approved the extra instalment. And the climactic energy bending sequence, that battle of souls turned inside out in light, was so difficult to describe that Konietzko reportedly hand-painted a full colour storyboard to ship to the animation studio in Korea, because words could not convey it. All of that comet fire, by the way, the entire apocalyptic firebending climax, was drawn by hand, not computer generated, and by some accounts the fire effects alone cost close to what most shows spend on an entire season. The priciest looking 2 hours the series ever produced were made the hard way, frame by frame, for a resolution built entirely around a hero choosing not to kill. There is one more thread worth flagging, and it is a genuine contradiction the franchise never resolved, which I mention because I would rather hand you the honest tangle than a tidy lie. Aang strips Ozai's bending permanently. That is stated and shown as permanent. But the Legend of Korra later establishes that energy bending is reversible, that bending can be restored the same way it is removed, and even has Korra, in a later season, claim she cannot take bending away at all, contradicting the very power the finale is built on. So the rule quietly shifts from permanent to reversible across the two shows, and is never squared. It does not undo the moral force of Aang's choice, but it is a real seam in the canon, and a good example of how even a show this careful left a few doors swinging. And consider the mark of just how much the culture responded to all of this. The finale, the 4-part film event in which Ozai falls, aired in the summer of 2008 and was not merely a hit for the network. By most accounts from ratings reports at the time, it drew a huge audience, a sharp jump over the same period the year before, and for its week it seems to have been one of the top-rated programmes across all of American television, broadcast and cable alike, not just among children but overall, with the core young audience spiking to numbers the network had rarely seen. A hand-drawn animated series about a pacifist boy who refuses to kill a genocidal emperor was, for 1 week, the biggest thing on television in the country. It reportedly went on to win an Annie Award for its direction. A show that Mark Hamill thought was too intelligent to survive ended its run at the very top of the ratings. Ozai's name, fittingly, carries a note of that towering ego. Name analyses connect it to a sense of proudly carrying oneself, the self-regard of a man who crowned himself king of a world he intended to burn. And when you put it all together, the world-ending ambition with no justification left, the personal cruelty to his own son and daughter, the way he functions as pure dread rather than a person, and the fact that his creators built him to be the thing you feared before you ever saw his face. There is no real argument against his place at the top. Sozin started the fire out of a poisoned dream of progress. Azula fed it out of duty and spite. Azula burned because her father struck the match inside her. Ozai is the one who wanted the fire for its own sake, who looked at the whole world and wanted to see it turn to ash, with himself enthroned above it, and who scarred his own child along the way, without a flicker of doubt. He is the most evil villain in Avatar, not because he is the strongest, though the comet made him briefly the strongest being alive, but because he is the emptiest, a furnace of ambition and cruelty, with nothing human left to appeal to. The show was right to keep his face in the dark. There was never much behind it but the fire. Before we zoom out, there are a few figures we pass by on the climb who deserve a quiet word, the ones who did not quite earn a full place on the ranking, but who fill in the texture of this world's villainy. And one of them lets me clear up a mistake this channel has made before, so I want to get it right. Start at the Boiling Rock, that volcano prison where Mai and Ty Lee made their choice. Its warden is a small, strutting, cruel man, utterly convinced of his own prison's perfection, and there is a lovely piece of casting behind him. According to the Wiki, the warden is voiced by Wade Williams, an actor best known for playing the prison guard Brad Bellick on the series Prison Break, a real prison drama actor cast as the fictional warden of the Fire Nation's most secure prison. And, as we noted much earlier, some fans have connected that warden to Mai's own family, a thread that adds a strange intimacy to that whole escape. He is not evil enough to rank a petty jailer more than a monster, but he is a perfect little portrait of how the Fire Nation's cruelty runs all the way down into its middle management. Then there are the Rough Rhinos, a squad of Fire Nation cavalry who raid and burn Earth Kingdom villages, the kind of anonymous, professional brutality that makes up the ordinary machinery of the war. And Gao, a local Earth Kingdom thug in the Zuko Alone episode, who bullies his own people under the cover of the war. Neither rises to the level of the names we ranked, but together they are the show's reminder that 100-year war does not only produce grand villains, it produces 1,000 small cruelties, opportunists and bullies, and squads of men just doing a terrible job. And those are the conditions that the true monsters at the top grow out of. And then there are Shin Fu and Master Yu. And this is where I have to correct the record, because it is a detail this channel has gotten wrong before, and viewers rightly caught it. These two are Earth Kingdom bounty hunters, hired by Toph's own father, Lao Beifong, to track down his runaway daughter and drag her back home. And the reason they matter to a villain's discussion is Toph's most famous invention. When Shin Fu and Master Yu capture Toph, they lock her inside a metal cage to hold her, reasoning that a blind earthbender cannot bend metal. And trapped in that metal box, feeling the tiny particles of earth still buried in the refined metal around her, Toph invents metal bending on the spot and tears her way out. I want to be precise about this, because the wrong version gets repeated everywhere. Toph did not invent metal bending in a Fire Nation cart, and there was no Fire Nation involvement at all. It was a metal cage, built by Earth Kingdom bounty hunters her own father hired, and that specific prison is what forced the greatest breakthrough in earthbending history. The captors are barely villains, more mercenaries in the Dune mould, but the cage they built earns its footnotes in any honest accounting. That is the whole list, from Dune at the very bottom to Ozai at the top. And before we close, I want to pull back and look at the shape of it, because the order we just climbed is not random, and it is not really mine. It is the argument the show itself keeps making, over and over, about what evil is and where it comes from. Look at the pattern in what we ranked. Almost everyone in the lower 2/3 of this list is a product of something. Jet was made by the murder of his parents. Hammer was made by a prison built to break waterbenders. Amon was made by a father who trained his sons to be weapons of revenge. Kuvira was made by being abandoned at a gate as a small child. Azula was made by a father who gave her power in exact proportion to how much love he withheld. Again and again, the show hands you a villain and then, quietly, shows you the wound underneath and asks you to hold two things at once: that the person is responsible for what they did and that they were also shaped into the shape that did it. That is a genuinely mature idea to build a children's show around. The notion that cruelty is usually manufactured, that most monsters were made by other monsters, and that understanding where a villain comes from is not the same as excusing them. And then, at the very top, the story gives you a small handful of people it declines to explain away. Sozin, who chose Empire over his oldest friend with a clear head. Yonra, who murdered a defenceless mother for nothing and felt nothing about it. Ozai, who wanted to burn a world he had no grievance against and who scarred his own son for having a conscience. The higher you climb this list, the less trauma there is to point to, until at the summit you find people who simply chose cruelty freely, with nothing pushing them into it. That is the spectrum the whole franchise is built on, and it runs in exactly one direction. The villains we pity are the wounded ones, and the ones we call evil are the ones with the least excuse. Evil, in Avatar, is not measured by how much power you have or how many people you hurt. It is measured by how freely you chose it. There is one figure I deliberately left off the ranking, and I want to end on him, because he is the argument's other half. Iroh, the gentle uncle, the tea-loving mentor, the warmest soul in the entire series. It is easy to forget that Iroh was once a genuine villain, and not a minor one. Before the man we know, there was the general they called the Dragon of the West, the crown prince of the Fire Nation, who laid siege to Ba Sing Se for 600 days and breached its great outer wall, the first invader in living memory to do so. An act of war that would have opened the last free city in the world to conquest. The kindest man in Avatar as the resume of a war criminal. What changed him was the worst thing that can happen to a person. His son, Lu Ten, died in that siege, and the grief broke the general open and remade him into someone who spends the rest of his life trying to guide a different, lost young man, his nephew, away from the path Iroh himself once walked. I leave Iroh off the list, because by the time the series begins, he is no longer a villain, but I end on him because he completes the pattern. The summit of this ranking proves that a person can freely choose to be evil. Iroh proves the door swings both ways, that a person who has done monstrous things can freely choose to become good, and can spend what is left of their life making it right. He is the answer to Ozai. Same nation, same royal blood, same war, even the same throne within reach, and one brother chose the fire and the other, after losing everything, chose tea and patience, and a second chance for a boy who did not deserve one yet. That contrast is the reason none of this is bleak. A show that believed evil was fixed and inborn could not have given us Iroh. Avatar believes people are made, and that what is made can, sometimes, with enormous effort and enormous loss, be remade. So when you rank these villains by evil, you are really ranking them by how much of themselves they surrendered, and by how far from any second chance they finally walked. June never walked far at all. Ozai walked all the way to the end of the road and set the road on fire behind him. And somewhere off the list entirely, an old man who once broke a city's wall sits pouring tea for the boy he is trying to save. Proof that the distance can be walked backward if you are willing to lose enough and change enough to do it. That is Avatar's real subject, underneath the bending and the comets and the flying bison. Not good against evil, but the slow, costly, entirely human work of becoming one or the other, one choice at a time, and the show's refusal to ever tell you that anyone was simply born bad, even at the top of a list called Ranked by Evil. It makes you look at where the fire came from. It is strange and a little wonderful that a cartoon that first aired on a children's network in the mid-2000s turned out to be one of the most thoughtful things anyone has made about villainy in a generation. That it could hold a genocidal emperor and an abused prodigy and a wounded orphan and a tea-drinking former war criminal in the same frame and ask you to weigh them honestly. Most shows aimed at that audience give you a bad guy to boo and a good guy to cheer and send you to bed. This one gave you a whole moral spectrum and trusted you to sit inside it, which is exactly why people who watched it as children are still, as adults, arguing about lists like this one at 1 a.m. It respected you before you knew you wanted to be respected, and it is still there, unchanged, whenever you want to walk back into it. So that is every notable villain in Avatar, ranked, from the honest mercenary at the bottom to the empty king at the top, with all the wounded, brilliant, tragic, and irredeemable figures in between. Thank you for spending this long, quiet stretch of the night here with me. If your eyes are already heavy, that is exactly as it should be, and you do not need to make it to the end. The list will still be here. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.